You're listening to the She Lift Project podcast, a show dedicated to helping women achieve higher levels of success in the workplace. No matter where you are in your career, we want to help you grow. Now here's your host, Cynthia Kirkpatrick, a CPA, CFP, and Senior Financial Advisor at Moneta Group.
Welcome to another episode of the She Lift Project podcast. I'm Cynthia Kirkpatrick. Thanks for joining us, and I'm really excited. Sylvia Owens is here with me today. She is the Director of IT at BJC Healthcare. You've been in healthcare for 27 years, most of it 18 years IT, and a lot of other background and successes that we'll share today. But thank you for coming and joining and willing to share your story.
Thank you for having me, Cynthia. Thank you.
And we first met, well, I first saw you. We didn't even meet that day. A year and a half ago, you told your story on the St. Louis That's What She Said event stage. And it was so impressive and so inspiring that when we were thinking about starting this podcast, because it was that long ago, I thought Sylvia is somebody I need to talk more with, get to know, and hopefully continue to share your story of struggle, success, advocacy, strength, you name it. So I'm really excited and I appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been about a year and a half. It was in March of 2023. And actually I was cast for that in November of 2022. And at first I said yes, and then I was thinking no, because it takes, you have to revisit and live through some things that you put in your past. And one thing I said, if I was going to tell my story, I would be authentic about it because I would want others to really learn from it, especially women and girls who were like me that may have gone through some things that I've gone through or going through things currently. So I wanted to be as authentic as possible. I know I only had a limited amount of time, but after I finished telling my story, and that's what she said, it was really cathartic, and so many people resonated with parts of my story. As that's how we met. And then we also saw each other at a fundraiser. I think it was for cancer. We happened to be sitting next to each other, ironically, at a fundraiser, and you said, I think I've seen you somewhere before, and we started a conversation. So that was really good. I'm glad we've had an opportunity to meet each other.
Well, and the That's What She Said event, for those who may or may not know about it, there's different events in different cities. St. Louis started that was the second show.
Yes.
And there's, I believe, another one coming later this year, which we're recording in the summer. So by the time this airs, it may have already shown. But essentially, it's many women getting up on stage and sharing what you want to share about your life and your story. And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's sharing stories because that's how we learn. That's how we, I don't know, as women, sometimes for me, feel like I'm not so crazy. Others are in the same boat. Is that how, and I'd love to know how it came to you, how you even became a part of it. Is that the idea from your understanding of the event?
My idea is just ordinary women in the different cities or towns where the shows are ordinary women, and I've heard them say that are doing extraordinary things. So it came to me because I have a very close friend who was a part of the show, and I attended the year prior, Rhoda Banks. She attended the show. I knew a bit about her past, but I think That's What She Said show allows women to really dress down and tell your story, tell it sometimes in a very funny way, but most importantly, highlight those twists and turns in your life that's gotten you to where you are, or perhaps you're still going through some things, but you're more confident, you're not afraid of being vulnerable, but most importantly, you want others. And even though it's about women, I found when I did the show, there were several men at the after party, several men that came up to me and said, I so resonate with your story. I have a daughter, or their coaches. And So to tell you how I actually was introduced, I saw Rhoda the year before. I believe it was Rhoda or someone else submitted my name as a volunteer to say to the producer, I think you should have a conversation with Sylvia. She has something to say, and I think others could learn from it. So I spoke to the producer in November 2022. And then later that month, she said, I really would like for you to be a part of the show. And then we started from there. But what was ironic about that time, I was living in New York. My brother, my oldest brother, was actually declining, and his death was imminent. So I had a lot going on at that time, and his death, me reflecting on my life, really put me in a position to say, I need to live life. And most importantly, I need to tell my story to help someone else, because as I watch my brother decline, he's taken all of his story with him. And that really put me on a path that I need to not be so introverted. And I need to come out and let others know who I am, what I've gone through, and continue to mentor and help others through telling my story. And the last thing about that, I believe we as women, and I'm just talking about the women in my family, I don't believe that they saw value in telling their stories. And I believe if more women, even in your immediate family, tell your story, not being afraid of being judged, because the world evolves, times are different. And so telling their story would help all of us who are coming behind them. And that's what I took away from that experience, and it actually put me on a path that I will tell my story wherever I need to, who will ever listen, to men, women, girls, boys, it doesn't matter. So I just want to be used in a way that could help others improve their lives.
Well, it's interesting to me what you said there, and I think about what we do, that men came up to you and said, I learned so much too. And I've had people come to me, oh, She Lift Project, is it just for women, all about women? And I'm sure there's probably some questions of, ooh, how are you talking about men? And really, at the end of the day, we're all humans.
Yes.
We're all human beings, whether you're really tall and I'm really short or whatever it might be. You're great at basketball. I absolutely am not. Thankfully, my husband can't speak. He doesn't have a microphone because he would laugh at the first time he saw me shoot a basketball. But we're all humans.
Yes.
And isn't it about coming together in that vulnerable way, learning from each other so that we can be better and we can help those around us be better?
I absolutely believe it is. When I look back on my life, Cynthia, I had so many, I would say, angels, male, female, men, women, that have blessed me, that have helped me get to where I am. Because I grew up in East St. Louis. That's where I'm from. I grew up a single mother, 6 children. I'm in the middle. And I will tell you, I had so many coaches, other parents, people that I didn't even know advocating for me, sponsoring me to different camps, taking me, sponsoring me, even guiding me, even in church. As a young girl, I would go to church, 7, 8 years old. I would go to church by myself. So I would be in church, and all these church parents would take care of me. So when I look back on my life, there were so many people outside of my mother that took care of me, that guided me. I really knew nothing about sports, and I told this story on the That's What She Said, but basketball saved my life. If it wasn't for basketball, I have no idea where I would have ended up. But because of basketball, I had an opportunity to win a state championship. In 1980, East St. Louis Lincoln girls, we won the state championship. That there wet my beak for more. And it showed me that I could use my athletic ability to propel my life, to do something differently, to move outside of where I was living. At that time, East St. Louis, and coming from a single mother, our resources were limited. or non-existent. And so I always dreamed of having a better life. And so for me, athletics was the way for me to do something differently with my life. Even though I won in high school, I was 15 years old when we won a state championship. I mean, what that did for me, the confidence that it gave me was remarkable. But I'm going to step back. The first time I ever won something that made me look at it and say, I could do this, I won a math contest when I was in the 5th grade for the entire district of East St. Louis. And at that time, there were quite a few elementary schools. And I was such an introverted child that I won the math contest and I didn't even know it. So when they announced it, my math teacher, Miss Gibson, she said, Sylvia, you won. So I won out of hundreds of children. I got first place. I remember getting a trophy and taking a picture with my principal. You know, when you're in elementary school, your principal and your teachers are basically your heroes, right? Got an opportunity to take a picture with the principal and my teacher, and we were in the local newspaper, and that was a big deal for me. I remember winning there. And then, so that's in elementary school. I go on to junior high school, and now I'm running track, playing basketball. Never learned to play volleyball in junior high school. And so in the 9th grade, I won the hurdles. I won first place in the hurdles for the junior high school, all junior high schools that were in East St. Louis. So I had a taste of winning in elementary school. I come back and I have a taste of winning athletically in junior high school. And then fast forward, I go to high school and we win a state championship. So I think those nuggets of winning just continue to build my confidence. And when I tell you build my confidence, I thought I could do almost anything. So I was awarded an athletic scholarship for the University of Houston. I was recruited by a lot of schools, Illinois, Missouri, just quite a few. And I had some accolades in high school athletically. But I go on to the University of Houston, and we did well as a women's team, and a lot of experiences there. But from University of Houston, I had an opportunity to try out for, at that time, it was the equivalent of the WNBA. I wasn't drafted, but it was an open trial. And I remember my college coach, Greg Williams, he said, Sylvia, I think you should go try out. They were having tryouts in Austin, Texas. And I said, but coach, I wasn't drafted. And he said, it doesn't matter. And he wrote me a Post-it note. And that Post-it note, he said, you are the purest shooter that I've ever seen. I need you to go to that camp and shoot your jumper and shoot it often. And so that note I would carry around in my purse. I did go to Austin, and I battled. I battled against a lot of the girls at the time that were drafted. And so I made the roster there, but unfortunately the league folded. And once the league folded, you had all of these women that were talented and looking to continue to play basketball. And so I had a sports agent, and from there I signed a contract to play professional basketball in Lugano, Switzerland. I did a season in Switzerland, broke my knee, rehabbed it best I could, and then did another season in Spain. From there, I just never, my knee was just never the same. And so from there, I came home, started life, and moved into healthcare.
I mean, I think of little Sylvia, whether it's 5th grade or earlier, getting that first taste of win. That sounds like it propelled you to keep moving forward. Was there anything else beyond that first taste of win, or anything prior to that you can look back and say, as we were talking before this, a lot of personalities are there when you're born. Anything before that, looking back, that said that's what helped contribute to my success? Because we kind of glossed over it, but if you think, I just saw something the other day that pretty soon the 1980s will be 50 years ago.
Yes.
Just crazy. a much different time, right? We didn't have the computers and the internet and traveling and researching teams all over the world. It was a much harder, slower thing to be doing what you did, to go from East St. Louis to Texas to play for college and then to go to Europe. Sounds easy today, but I think we've downplayed here how difficult it was. So early on, Sylvia, what made you courageous, strong to do those things?
My childhood, I like to think my mother was fearless, honestly, because there were 6 of us. She was a single mother for 6 of us. And we were relatively close in age, and so we were all, probably moving in school at the same time and different things. But I was the first athlete of my mother's children. I was the first athlete. And I think the courage really came from my mother in the household, her perseverance, when I look back on that. But I was always a mother's daughter. I was always around my mother. And believe it or not, I was more of a serious child. So I didn't laugh a lot. I had fun, but in my own way. I would live in my head quite a bit as a child. I watched a lot of television. I watched a lot of sporting events as a young person. I remember watching soccer, Pele, and I was just totally amazed by watching this. Didn't understand the rules, but I would watch it. So I would live and imagine and dream through television. So when the coaches first saw me and introduced me to sports, I think it was just natural because I had already started to dream from watching television. I think that's one of the things. It was my mother and living life in my head through the television too.
Well, that's pretty amazing, at least in my mind, that you go from not maybe growing up in a very athletic family, not seeing that. And it sounds like somebody at some point saw something in you and said, we need to get Sylvia into sports, and how do we support her?
So Coach McDowell, he's no longer with us, but I attribute, so many people that changed my life, but he saw me in the 7th grade and he said, you come out for basketball. I was like, me? No, I don't know how to do that. And he's like, you be at practice. And so I went, and I was totally just not good at it. But he continued to work with me. What I didn't know at that time was that he was a part of a larger network of coaches that were there in East St. Louis that was actually building talent from one grade level to the next. So it was more like a feeder system. So he saw me, he developed me, and before you know it, then I was moving on to high school, which he was already connected with those coaches, and he was developing talent, young talent, and preparing the young talent to move to the higher level. So he saw that, and he brought that in me, and he brought that out in me. And most importantly, my mother allowed me to do it, and I kept doing it as long as my grades were up. And I was still doing very well academically. I was still in, the top 10, 15% of my class. Doing well academically, doing well athletically, it just fueled me. And I think when it boils down to it, I am competitive. I am competitive. And sometimes I'm competing with myself. In most instances, current state, I'm competing with myself. How do I do it better? I look at that, yes, that's good, and you've won on that. And when I say won, maybe you've accomplished a goal professionally. You've accomplished a goal, and how do you do that better? That's how my brain works today.
And some people get trapped in that competitive compared to others, which really is more judgment in my mind, or leads to judgment, versus that competitive, how do I become the best, better version of myself?
I look, the way I operate today, personally and professionally, I'm not competing on a court or on a track, but I like to solve problems, and I think that's how my brain works too. You can give me something that probably doesn't make sense. It's a little scrambled, but in my brain, I'm going to put it in some order. And then from there, I'll still continue to build and assess, analyze it, see what I can do differently in order to do better the next time.
Well, that'll be great to come back to when we talk about what you're doing today. But from just this recent part of the conversation, you had somebody who saw something in you. So if you think about business or life, you want to have those mentors, those allies, those people who are going to push you and acknowledge something special in you. But I have to admit or imagine that there's a lot of grit on your part, a lot of hard work that went into, I don't even play basketball, and as you said, it's very good, to going over to Europe and playing. We don't want to skirt over the fact that I imagine you put a lot of hard work in.
I put a lot of hard work in. I was young, and when I look back at that time, all I wanted to do was play basketball. Once I realized I was good at that, I won a state championship. I was second team All-American in the district or whatever it was locally. Once the accolades started to come, and then my coaches started to share with me that I had the ability to go to college, and I would have been the first one from my family, from my mother's children, to literally go to college. Once I understood that, and then I'd seen a lot of women before me. So East St. Louis Lincoln was really a powerhouse in the 80s, 70s, up through the 80s for women's basketball. Coach Riggins, who's no longer with us, just built awesome teams. Coach Riggins, Coach McDowell, Coach Ash. Those coaches produce really, really good female athletes. And so we had a role model. Honestly, I had role models before me, and they were going off to UCLA and Nebraska. They were going off to all of these schools to use their talent. So they were trading their talent for a scholarship for their education. I wanted to be a part of that. And the coaches said, you can do that as well. So it was that, seeing it before me. It was the coaches constantly reminding us that you're good enough, and positioning us so that we can believe that, not just telling us that. That's the thing that was in me. And when I mentioned about quite a few angels, a lot of parents would tell us that as well. So they weren't just interested in their child doing really good. They were interested in the children in the community doing very well. So it was all that constant reinforcement that it gave me confidence that I could do that as well. Fast forward to Houston, I was so homesick my first 2 years. Seriously, I was so homesick. I think I was very skilled. I can compete. But I really didn't start to compete at the level that the coaches knew I could to my junior, senior year.
Why is that?
Because I was homesick. I think I was homesick. I wasn't prepared to go that far away. My mother didn't have a lot of resources, so I didn't see anyone that I really knew. I had to build new relationships. And I'm 18, and all I've ever known is East St. Louis in this area, and then I go off to the large city of Houston. Coaches did well. They took care of me, but there was something missing. So about my junior, senior year, I was able to really get myself together, basically grow up.
What happened, or what spurred that?
I had a couple mentors in college, male. One of them you all may recall, Elvin Hayes. Elvin Hayes played for the University of Houston in the 60s and 70s. Elvin Hayes joined the athletic department, and he was more of an advisor, and I don't know his official role, but we would have a lot of conversations with him. He put a lot of things in perspective for me. And once he put that in perspective, then I started to understand, and I started to grow up. But I didn't do as well those first 2 years. So that's one of the reasons I didn't think I had an opportunity to play. And Coach Williams was like, no, you go. No, you go. So the courage and the grit and the following your dreams started in East St. Louis. Coach Williams and Coach Williams really said, he put the cherry on that, go do it. Once I made that team, I was fearless. Where do I go next? Got a sports agent. We have these couple teams that are interested in you. We landed on Switzerland. He said, I think that's the best place for you. They need your talent. I am on a plane to Switzerland. And my sports agent said, there will be somebody there in Zurich waiting for you with a Polaroid picture of you. You go with the guy that actually has your picture. So I'm 21, 22. I get off the plane. I see someone with that picture. He said, Sylvie. I said, yes. He said, I'm Claudio Myers. He said, you come with me. And we drove from Zurich to Lugano with somebody I didn't know.
So talk about when you mentioned those first freshman and sophomore year, not put your potential, missing home, East St. Louis, and now you're in Switzerland.
I'm in Lugano, Switzerland.
In the 80s.
In the 80s.
It's not like today.
Not like today. So,
how did you, what was that, how did you get there? From somebody who was homesick to 2 years later, internationally, living somewhere else, playing, working, it was your career somewhere else.
I wanted to play basketball. And when the league folded in 80, it was in 86 when I made the team. And when the league folded, I wanted to play basketball. And all the women that were there with me, it was 12 to 15 of us from all different parts of the United States, wanted to play ball. That's what we wanted to do. So
was it knowing what you wanted and what you were passionate about, what drove you, and then saying, I'm going to find a way, whatever it is, I'm going to do it?
I don't know how the connection happened. So it was the passion, and we all had the same passion. We wanted to play basketball because we were like, we have more to give. There's more for us to learn, more to give. And we were all dreaming of something much larger. And when this, the WNBA equivalent started, we were all excited about the opportunity to really create a legacy. You know, that's what we were excited about. When the league voted, is my understanding it voted due to sponsorship. Sports agents came out. We don't know where they came from. Ironically, my sports agent was in New York. And we'll talk about that later, how I had an opportunity to move to New York.
Right.
But my sports agent was in New York, and we did all of the negotiating via telephone and fax.
I was just talking to my husband the other day about a card that had a fax number. He's like, who uses faxes anymore?
Right,
so it's come full circle. It's kind of side note, because we got to go through your story, but I bet maybe this is a note for everybody that when you see the WNBA today,
yes,
what do you think? Especially, and not only today, you know, it definitely within the last year or two seems like, again, I'm not in the basketball world, so maybe it's not fair. Seems like the energy and the excitement, while there has certainly been pumped up the last year or two. Looking back, looking at a veteran and a pro, what do you think about it all?
I love it. Actually, there was a period in my time where I didn't watch. When the WNBA first started, I didn't watch it. I think I was a bit melancholy. I was a bit sad about it. I was trying to raise my daughter, but I was still coaching locally. I was still coaching AAU. I coached at the Y. I was still volunteer coaching. Even in East St. Louis, I was doing some volunteer work. So I was still around the game a bit. But there was a part of me, it was like, I wish that could have been me, because I thought I was going to play basketball until I was about 40 years old. You know, that was so old at that time. But I thought I'd be playing. But I love it. I love everything about it. I love how the women are competitive on the court, but still they are themselves off the court. The grit and how they're competitive with each other and they play very hard. It's not necessarily who they are. So I love all of it. I like that they're getting more notoriety. I love that more men are paying attention to the women's game, and it's faster. The skills are different. But when I look at that, that was a goal I think quite a few of me and my team members and other women from that era, we had those same dreams, the ones that didn't have an opportunity to play in the WNBA. But I love everything about it. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, there's always the groundbreakers, right? Who it doesn't always work out as you would plan, but somebody's going to pave the way.
Yes.
And eventually give it time, but through the grit and the community and the support, it gets there. So I just had to ask from where we're at in this world with the WNBA and the excitement, as you just summarized. I would imagine there's a little bit of wish that could have been around when I was there, but also a little bit of love for the fact that we're getting there.
The love and the celebration, and I hope to take my granddaughter. I have a granddaughter, 4-year-old granddaughter. Take her so she can witness all of that in the stand. So I think it's amazing, honestly.
And it's important for women, as you said earlier in your story. When you see it, you feel you can become it. And now, as moms who've played sports, grandmothers who've played sports, you certainly at a much better level than I did. We can bring our daughters and our granddaughters and say, I did it, and look at them doing it, and you can do it too. And give that, build their confidence and support and say, the sky's the limit, be you.
I think even just in life, period, right? Whatever your talent is, your gift and your talent, whatever it is, you want to maximize it. You hear people say, if you do what you love, right, the money will come. And I'm paraphrasing or putting it in my own words, but if you do what you love, you will be able to sustain yourself. And so when I look at athletes, they're doing what they love. They're entertaining all of us. And then they're in the position where they can monetize their talent. I've sat in places where I've heard others have different opinion about athletes and the amount that they make, et cetera, et cetera. And just on a small scale, being a professional athlete in other countries, there were probably some that thought that same thing about me. But being a professional athlete, you're giving a lot, and you have to be on every night. You don't get an off day. So when you talk about what athletes make, I don't care what the sport. I don't care the sport. It's worth it, in my opinion, because they can't have an off day.
Well, even during the season, probably an off moment, right?
Because an off moment.
How do you wake up? What do you eat before the game? How do you prep for the game? What do you do after the game? What are you doing on non-game, non-practice days? How are you? It's that season-long and before the season battle.
Yes, it's pressure, and it's constantly on in every aspect of your life. Even when you walk out your door. When I look at athletes today, that's what I'm talking about. I just support it, honestly. I celebrate it. And if you are top in your game, whatever it is, and you're able to monetize that so you can live your best life as well as do what you love and entertain all of us, do it. Do it.
And it's going back to finding what makes you tick. What is your love?
What is your love?
Which is different, as we said. It's not about competing with others. That competition in yourself to be yourself.
It's within you.
So I will get to more, but you're no longer playing basketball.
No.
You can't play to the level that you want. What happens next? You come back to the St. Louis area from Europe?
So I came back from Spain. I spent some time in Germany, and then I came back. I went from Spain, spent some time in Germany, came back home to St. Louis, and then started my life. I got married. I only have one daughter. So I got married, started living life. But this thing was sitting inside of me. I would push it down. No, I no longer play basketball. I'm a wife and a mother, and I need to focus on my family. So that's what I would say to myself. But I was like, what do I do next? So I started to leverage some contacts, and I found my way into healthcare. I already had a love of accounting. Believe it or not, I love numbers. I had some summer jobs, took courses, and so I leveraged all of that to really get a job at Scott Air Force Base. So I started doing some work at Scott Air Force Base, and then made my way to Eastside Health District. So I started working in Eastside Health District in the immunization clinic, working with working with the nurses that were immunizing the babies. And that's really where I cut my teeth on technology. And back then, all the index cards, they would have index cards with all the shot records for all the babies. And the nurses would come from one end of the health clinic to the other to get the index cards for the babies that were scheduled to come in and get their immunization. I had a mentor that taught me how to create a database. And so I created a database with a mentor where I took all those shot records and put them in the computer in a database so the nurses would have an opportunity versus running back and forth and trying to keep up with these cards. They would just log on to the terminal in the back, pull up the child's name and information. They would be able to see their shot record, be able to document there. And so there was an ease of use there and streamlining a workflow that was broken.
Solving problems.
And so that was really where I cut my teeth in healthcare. And from there, I had an opportunity to work for Washington University School of Medicine in their business office, Department of Ophthalmology. Went on an interview, got hired, and spent 7 years at WashU. About 7 years at WashU in their business office. Spent 8 years. From there, I spent 8 years at St. Louis University School of Medicine in the business office. And all of that was in accounts receivable. So then there was an opportunity for, I think it was about the time when Bill Clinton was in office, talking about electronic health records. And we wanted to, as a country, he wanted to really make sure that our records were accessible. To really all about improving care. I'd heard about it. I wanted to be a part of it. So I applied for a position, and I was a leader in all those previous positions, but I took a step back and I applied for an analyst position at Mercy Health. And I was hired as an analyst, no longer supervising or managing people, hired as an analyst. I was an analyst for roughly 7 months. And then I became the director for the scheduling component of the electronic record. Spent almost 2 years leading teams across multiple states for Mercy. And then I took on the director of hospital billing. So once I got to Mercy, I spent 13 and a half years with Mercy. And once I got to Mercy, I was exposed to so much more from a technology perspective. And Mercy's across 4 or 5 different states. I was in a leadership position, not just for my hardline responsibility. I started to just get exposed to all things technology, not just the software. That was exciting to me. I did a lot of traveling with Mercy around to different healthcare organizations for Mercy proper, as well as others that we were interested in supporting, bringing them live on electronic health records. For Mercy, I took a position in New York. So they were looking for someone, a leader that had years of experience with implementing electronic health records across large hospital systems. I was at a point in my life where I believed I had done all that I was set out to do for Mercy. And this was an opportunity for me to help another organization bring their system up on electronic health records. They were already in New York. They were already live on Epic's EHR, but there was a component that they were not, and they were looking for someone with the skill set of going live from a hospital perspective, large healthcare systems. So it worked out, and I moved to New York in 2020, in the middle of the pandemic. I moved to New York to work for Mount Sinai.
And was that really, you had said, I felt like I had done all I could through Mercy. Was it that yearning for something new or different or a different city? Like from the girl from East St. Louis who's afraid and homesick, she decides to go to New York?
Well, I think, like for me, Mercy's a large organization, and we work with quite a few other healthcare organizations too. And I felt like I had gotten Mercy to a point from my seat. I had gotten them to a point where they were running well. Things were running well from my responsibility. I had coached up quite a few of my team members that at any time could lead that team. So I was looking for my next challenge. And what better place to go to New York? It was a challenge, large healthcare system. And I had lived in other countries. I've lived in other cities. I wasn't afraid to live someplace else. So that really I wasn't fearful of that. I thought I was qualified to do the work, and my talent would match very well with what the need was for that organization. So I packed up and moved to New York. Wonderful experience, great organization. I learned a lot there. I spent 2.5 years working for Mount Sinai in their IT department. I was a senior director there. And then I left Mount Sinai. I took a consulting role with a large healthcare system in Houston to help them get through their EHR implementation as well. But I was on the road. I was still traveling. And for Mercy, I had traveled quite a bit. And I wanted to be home. An opportunity came up that BJC was looking for someone with my skill set as well. And it was a great opportunity for me to be at home and doing the work that I've done across so many communities, do that right here in my own. And so it worked out. And now I'm an IT director, one of several IT directors at BJC. My primary focus is all things related to revenue cycle in the business.
Yeah, as you had mentioned, or we talked about, wrote down that you're in software change management and business process design. Those are some big heavy hitters.
You know, when Epic Electronic Health Record, Epic has a large share of the market when it comes to electronic medical records, health records, and they're just not in the United States, they're abroad as well, so very large. I've been implementing Epic software focused on revenue cycle applications for 18 years. So all my experience in the business office really helped me transition into IT, because it's important to understand the business aspects and the processes and workflows within a hospital system in order to help configure software that supports those business processes. So I'm 18 years in implementing. I am excited to be able to bring that talent to BJC. I've been at BJC 6 months now, probably 7 months, going into my 7th month. But they have a need for my talent, and I have a need to do what I do best right here in my own community.
And you have mentioned that a lot of leadership roles along the way, and you know, almost in your own right of moving through your basketball career, kind of that, I don't know, leadership of being brave, trying new things, that sort of thing. How do you think growing up with maybe some of the challenges you grew up in East St. Louis, you know, one of 6 kids, single mother, maybe it's too much of a loaded question. How did that shape who Sylvia is, both as a person and as a leader, as a professional woman?
So when you grow up with minimal resources, this is my belief. When you grow up with minimal resources, then you learn to do a lot with a little. And in healthcare, you're taking care of a lot of people, a lot of patients, you're taking care of the community. And we know that in healthcare, the margins are not always very large. And a leader in healthcare, where we are challenged as leaders to do quality work, do the best work, do what's right, take care of those, your coworkers, take care of those in the community, and do that best you can, knowing that you may not have a lot of resources to do that. So you don't skimp on quality. You figure out how to do things better, more efficiently, in order to continue to take care of the coworkers and the patients in the community. So I think that upbringing from East St. Louis taught me that.
What do you think? You've had a lot of different leadership roles, and over a long time, I feel like leadership is hard.
It's hard.
And describing and being a good leader is hard. What has been your success, makes you a good leader, to be a leader in so many different areas for so long, especially in I would imagine, a challenging industry like healthcare and IT?
So and leadership is not about the leader. And I equate this back to basketball. When you have a coach or coaches, they can't go out on the court and shoot the ball and dribble the ball and pass the ball. But coaches have to be really good at getting work done through others. And so from a leadership perspective, that's how I see it. As a leader, I have to be really good at getting work done through others. I have roughly 60 team members that report up through me. And it's important that I tap into what motivates each of them and balance that with what the strategic priorities are for the organization, and then what are the priorities for my individual teams. And you have to balance that and understand how to motivate and bring out the best in each person, in the same way you do on a soccer field, the same way it happens if you have a coach that has the best boxer. He can't box for that boxer. So leadership is about creating high-performing, well-efficient, and cohesive teams. That's how I lead. I am really good at building good teams. I may not be the best, but I'm really good at that because I understand team dynamics. I understand it to my core. And what I know, in order for anyone to be successful and any leader to be successful, it's not about you. You have to get the work done through others, and you have to get it done through the pathway that motivates them individually, not always collectively. And that's how I lead. And that's what I've learned from my athletic career. That's what I've learned from the grit growing up in East St. Louis with minimal resources. That's what it's about.
And what is it, so to motivate them, to get the best out of them, how do you do that? What are the tricks? And trick's not the right word. It sounds like you're tricking somebody. What are the tools in Sylvia's toolbox that helps you to be one of the best at doing that?
So people, the person, the individual person. Currently, I have, I mentioned I have roughly 60, and the numbers could give or take a few numbers. But I meet with each of my team members. The cadence is different. Some of them I meet with weekly, and some of them I meet with twice a year. But most importantly, meeting with the person to understand what motivates them. Some are transactional. Some people are transactional. As long as you pay me, then I'll do that. Some are not. Some are motivated by doing good work or what their passion is. Some are motivated by recognition, whether it's public recognition or you recognize them in private. Some are motivated by family legacies. You know, my parents and my grandparents, and they were born here and they worked here. So the legacy, there's a pride thing. So understanding who the people are, it's how you motivate them. I'll take it back to athletics. Our coach could motivate each of us differently. That note that Coach Williams wrote to me was enough for me to have the courage to pack up my things from Houston and move to Austin. I don't know where I'm going to stay, but we'll figure it out when we get there. but you need to be in that gym showing them your talent. So it's about connecting with the individual people. Now, in leadership, you have to have courage to do the right thing, even if sometimes it's unpopular. But you also have to have courage, and you have to put in the time to understand your team members and what motivates them. And I'm 6 or 7 months in, and that's what I've been spending my time, understanding my team members, as well as creating the strategy for us to move forward and to meet the strategic priorities of the organization, as well as the priorities that I've set for our different teams.
Sounds like you're building trust in psychological safety and care and concern through getting to a deeper level of them versus it's all about me, the leader.
And absolutely, because I've had some that would say, in their career, they don't recall ever having 15 or 20 minutes where it's just them and a director or senior director. And I don't think that there's anything special. It just depends on the organization, the structure, and what that particular leader has on their plate. Not every leader leads the same way, but I do believe every leader has to be really good at getting work done through others. Whatever their methodology is, my methodology is to connect with each person and then share who I am as well, because they need to know who they're following. So if I want them to trust my judgment, if I want them to follow the roadmap, the track that I'm laying down for them, if I want them to run on that track, they need to understand who they're following. Because not everybody's, they're not going to blindly follow you because your title says you're the leader. Just because your title says that doesn't mean I totally trust you and want to follow your judgment, and I trust your judgment and want to follow you. So for me, it was important for them to understand who I am, how I lead, what motivates me, how I operate, and I needed to understand that about them. And then we can build a team, and they can trust, even if they don't know all the details, they can trust my judgment because they know what my operating system is.
I'm imagining the conversations where it's sharing both ways. What motivates you? What are your intentions? What are your goals? And by the way, to be clearly transparent, here's what motivates me, here's what my goals are, and I want to build. Is it literally just saying that stuff out loud?
It's more of a conversation like you and I are having. I would say, what questions do you have for me? What are you curious about, personally or professionally? Some they may ask questions and some may not. So then I open up and tell them who I am. I've told some, depending on the conversation, that I was married for 20 years and I've been divorced for X amount of years and I've been in leadership. And so I tell them my journey, all the places that I've lived, that I've implemented. I talk about my basketball career. I just let them know who I am. And what we'll find is that they too have grandchildren that are in the house with them, like my granddaughter. I've had a couple of my team members where we were bonding on. They too have a 4-year-old granddaughter, and we talk about those things. But letting them know that I am like them, we have a different role, but our responsibility to the organization is the same. Do good work, take care of we want to use the technology to take care of the patients, make sure that we are doing things efficiently, being mindful of our cost, not skimping on quality, and being good human beings and doing the work that you've been hired to do. That's really what it's about. And even though our titles are different, our goals are the same.
And in my mind, what I hear you describing is coming to work as your full self.
As your full self. And there was a time that you couldn't do that. I recall back in the 90s, you couldn't talk about that you were headed out the door and your 2 toddlers just, you couldn't get out, something was going on, so you're going to be an hour late for work. That was punitive. But in the world we live in today, we recognize you have to bring your full self in. It's okay. It is okay. And have that conversation when something does happen. And I personally believe that the workforce, the work that we do, we're in a better state that no one has to hide who they are. No one has to feel in fear that yes, I may be an hour late, and it's okay. Your job is still secure, because as a mother, fathers, they too have young people that may have incidents before, right when they're getting ready to walk out the door. So I believe being your full self, your authentic self, it makes for a better workplace, honestly.
And if that's something that's important to you, wanting and needing to come to work, because we spend more of our time at work than any other one place outside of sleeping hours. If that's important to you to come to work as your full self, and you're not allowed to do that because of the culture, the environment, look elsewhere. Don't shortchange yourself.
Yes, but I will say where I've been able to work, all the places that I've worked, it's been embraced to be yourself, to be in community. BJC, even though I worked for Mercy for 13 and a half years, I'm at BJC seven months. Internally, the culture is amazing, regardless of the role. The leaders at the top of the organization bring them their full selves to work, and you can see that and experience it. And even when I was going through orientation, I was thinking there's something different here. Not any other place that it wasn't good. It's just the fact there was something different when you can see how personable the top of the organization, how they are. It was. I like where I am. I've landed in a good place, and I'm really honored to be able to come back home and do the work that I've done for so long in the community in which I live.
When I think of IT and being, higher up on that ladder, and I've talked to others who have been in IT for a long time, as a female, you know where I'm going with this. What challenges or help were there any challenges along the way? And what were they? How did you overcome? And did you have help from any sources to get through that learn, grow? So
I've had, when I talked about angels before, and as a young athlete, I had many angels in healthcare, male, female, in my healthcare experience. And when I first started, you didn't see a lot of females in leadership in IT. I didn't see it. And you didn't see a lot of black females in IT and leadership. But I can say throughout my 18 years, you can see the landscape changing. And it's welcomed, because IT in healthcare is a staple. It is a staple in the software that I work in, software configuration. It's a staple, and it's embraced. I think we are allowed, as women in healthcare IT, we are allowed to be a part of the conversation, to lead at the highest level. I've met some female CIOs, which is amazing, but we are allowed to lead in different spaces in IT. We're knowledgeable about those spaces. It's no longer the appearance, and I'm not saying it's real, but it's no longer the appearance that only men understood IT. I think it's changed for the better. That's what I believe. And when I look at my journey just in healthcare, Cynthia, when I think about it, I spent 13 and a half years at a Catholic organization, and where we were asked to bring our full selves to work. We would pray before or after, and it was encouraged and expected. As leaders, you were expected to lead prayer and promote it. You were expected to spend time, volunteering hours as leaders with the nurses at the convent. And what's ironic about that whole thing is that I'm named after a nun. I didn't know that till I was an adult. My mother, when I was younger, my mother would call me Sister Sylvia, and I just thought that's what a name up for, an endearing name, Sister Sylvia. But when I became an adult, she told me that I was born in St. Louis at one of SSM facilities. I was the third child. She was exhausted, and they were saying to her, "What are you going to name the baby?" And she was like, "I don't know." And so one of the nuns that was actually caring for my mother, she said, "What's your name?" She said, "My name is Sylvia." She said, okay, well, that's her name, Sylvia. So I was named after a nun. And how ironic. Look at life's journey. I was named after a nun. I move on to serve in healthcare. I served at an organization for 13 and a half years that was founded by nuns. You're expected to engage with the nuns. You're expected to pray before or after. And when I just think about my whole journey, even being at BJC, I think it was predestined, and that's what I believe. You know, I volunteered at the convent when I was at Mercy, and I would sit with the nuns and we would watch basketball. They loved it. And when they found out I played basketball, when I tell you they loved basketball, they would talk about it, the few of them, and I would say it, and we would laugh about it. But when I just look at my life and my whole journey, I feel this is where I was supposed to be from when I came into the world. My mother didn't have a name for me, and so she named me after the nun that was caring for her. It's ironic.
It is, and wow, what a way to reflect on your journey, your life, where you're at today, and the stories just beginning again at BJC. When you think back to, we said a lot of stories, a lot of things. Anything stand out to you as far as breakthrough moments or obstacles or things that you would want to share that we haven't already that would be good advice for, again, whether it's women, but anyone in general, from your history, things you've learned?
You know, for me, I've started my life over again multiple times, and I didn't tie it all together. I've told a couple stories, but just thinking from me leaving East St. Louis, going to Houston, me breaking my knee and thinking I was going to play basketball, I got to start over again. I was in a marriage that was plagued with addiction and quite a few other things. It was unhealthy. So I get divorced after 20 years. I start over again. I moved to New York, moved back, I start over again. So the resilience is really what I want to highlight, just being resilient. Even if you're knocked down or you have situations in your life that feels like you're never going to recover from it, being patient with yourself. And that's what I've had to do, be patient with myself. And then I've had to realize that I have more to give. And that's what keeps me getting up and going and doing different things and continue to just move forward and maximizing the talent that I have. I'm no longer in athletics. I do still connect with friends who are still coaching. But most importantly, finding a way to be resilient. Don't stay down. I've started over and I've pivoted. And I've had some instances where I just didn't believe I would be able to recover. But talking kindly to myself is another thing I do well. Even when I have hard times, I figure out what am I supposed to learn from that, and how do I start to rebuild and get myself back on my feet. So that's what I would leave others with. And that's male, female, with anyone. It's so easy to stay down and have a pity party, but get up.
How do you get yourself up from that?
I reflect quite a bit. I reflect. Every day is a reflection. I reflect on what I did that day and how I get better the next day. And I've been that way since I've been an adult. But even when I'm talking unkindly to myself, I find a way to say, okay, one step at a time. I don't try to solve all my problems, personal problems. I don't try to solve them all at one time, because sometimes that can be daunting when you think about, I have to get up. What do I do first? And then second, third. And then when you look back, you've had this journey and you're now on the upside of that bad thing that was going on with you. So it's talking kindly to yourself, seriously. The stories we tell ourselves, sometimes we can believe them. Me being... Especially
when you're the one who's in your head most.
You're speaking and you're answering your same questions. You know, that won't be good for you.
And what I like that you said there additionally was, if there's a problem, if there's a task, if there's an issue, take it one piece at a time. So as some people say, don't try to eat the whole elephant.
Right.
Take a bite at a time. Whatever the saying may go, it's getting through the next step.
One day at a time.
Yeah.
I found that works for me because I am an orderly person in my mind. If you give me something scrambled, I'm going to try to put it in order. But from an orderly perspective, what do I do next? And then the next day, it could be a different thing that I need to do next. But just don't stay down. And I have restarted my life multiple times.
And from somebody on the outside who may see you walk in today, so well put together, looking gorgeous, obviously listening to you and your career and your position, smart, successful. We often see in the world the moment that somebody gets the award or the trophy, and we don't see the falling down or the struggles or the hard work and the grit, the setback of breaking your knee and not being able to do until 40 what your passion was. Does that really go back to that grit and resilience? Anything else in Sylvia that has allowed you to continue to overcome?
So the thing that keeps me grounded to push me forward is always remember, just as a child, the limited resources and watching my mother struggle. That is not a bad thing. It's a motivating thing for me because we're all doing well. You know, I lost my oldest brother, but we're all doing well. All 5 of us are doing well. And it just reminds me, if you can get through that, if your mother could live through that, you surely can live through this temporary crisis that you're having. It's temporary. And also, I do use my network of angels. I still have a network of angels, and I am a part of someone else's network of angels as well. And I lean on them because I know if you listen to yourself, you might not ever get out of it. When I talked about the stories you tell yourself or you're talking to yourself in your head, I'll go to my network of angels and we'll talk through that. And if there's something cloudy, they allow me to see clearly. And I am that for someone else. So they say every therapist needs a therapist, every friend needs a friend. And that's how I believe in that.
Every player needs a coach, no matter what level. Every coach needs a coach.
Yes.
Every successful leader needs someone mentoring them and helping them through.
And I also think if I am mentoring, and I do, I mentor and I'm giving advice, and I believe I'm giving good advice, but then I am not getting advice from anyone, how am I being a good mentor? If I believe that you should follow my advice or you should entertain or consider the advice I'm giving you, but I don't seek advice.
Some people are taught that as leaders or parents, whatever life, that you're supposed to come out with all the right answers, and to not have that is to show weakness and create doubt, when that is a great perspective switch on that, to say, how can I expect you to listen to my input if I'm not willing to also be open like that?
Yes, I still have mentors. I still have, even professionally, I still have mentors that I rely on, that I seek counsel. So it's not just from a personal perspective. I still have professional mentors around me. And I think as long as I am on this side of the dirt, I will have mentors around me.
This side of the dirt. And I mean, selfishly, that's a big reason why we do this podcast, is because I get to learn every time I sit in this chair. And I get to be inspired by everybody who sits in that chair. And if others don't listen, if others don't get anything from it that helps them, again, selfishly, I walk away every time going, whew, what was put in front of me is what I needed to hear.
I can't imagine what you've taken in by the conversations you've had with these women.
And I keep getting to find great women like you to put in those chairs. You're going to be shocked. It's been over an hour that we've been talking and sharing your information, your story, all of it. And I think about, what a journey of struggle, overcoming, success, other things that we may or may not have gotten to, advice for others along the way that helped you become successful.
I do believe that from a female perspective, women, we really should pour into more women, and that I believe that wholeheartedly, telling your story, because it wasn't until I went outside my family for women to really tell their stories, pour into me, so it wasn't like you're not the only one that's experienced it. I do believe if we do that where we have young girls, it will help them avoid some probably missteps that me and others have had. I really do believe that. And honestly, as I move around in tech and watch women in tech, I believe women in tech should spend more time talking about their journey as well and promoting. Women in tech is a good thing. I think women in tech, great leaders. That's one of the biggest things I would say. And of course, I always love sports. I think team sports are great, regardless of what the sport is. It just builds character. It helps with leadership and confidence, all of that. And I believe that for little girls or little boys, I just believe finding a group that they could be a part of that allows them to learn from others, that'll build the leaders of the future.
Wow. I keep thinking I have to ask more questions. You have so much more knowledge, but that's a great way to sum up things, is that teamwork and building knowledge and support built around you, that had you not had your, in 7th grade, right, be plucked to say,
go do this.
Go do this, have that support, somebody who believes in you, we're not here today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think about that. I reflect on it all the time. Actually, Cynthia, I've found some of the angels back then, and I've written letters. Over the past 5 years, I've written letters, or I found them, and I've acknowledged their contribution to my life and where I am, and me as a person, not just from a professional perspective, but as a person, my way of thinking, the compassion and understanding people, and being so passionate about pouring into someone else. It was because of all the people that pour into me, not just my mother.
And there's this saying, and I'm not going to get this right, but it's something like, you might not have that one thing for everyone, but you might be that everything to that one special person. Mm-hmm. And that ripple effect, that impact, that by being kind, supportive, real, genuine, a big heart, you never know how many years from now this person's sitting in a chair saying, these coaches, these people along the way changed the trajectory of my life and totally everyone around me.
Totally changed it. Basketball saved my life.
Basketball and those people putting themselves in support of you, and your willingness to jump on that train and put the work in.
Yes.
And be courageous and fearless, as you had talked about earlier. Not being so introverted as we talked. We're both a little bit introverted before we started, and getting out there to, as you said, live life and tell my story. That way others can be inspired and learn and grow from what you shared today. So very inspiring. I feel like when I grow up and become successful, I want to be like Sylvia. Not the basketball part. That will never happen.
You, Cynthia, I think you're amazing. I appreciate you having me. I appreciate you giving me a forum to just talk more about what you heard almost 2 years ago. You're right, there's more to share and more to give. I look forward to being able to inspire and share with others and learn from other women too, and other story. So I appreciate it.
Thank you for the story of courage, hard work, building an angel network, being a great leader, being fearless, restarting your life a lot of times. And I think what people will be able to see, what I saw, is that the success comes from a pure love and light inside of you that you willingly, vulnerably share with us. And I know that's what I connected with. That's what I'm learning from. And so I appreciate you giving of your time and heart and soul for me and others today. And I'm so glad that I saw you on stage. We sat next to each other at that charity, and look at what putting ourselves out there led for me. So thank you very much. And I'm sure there's others out there, whether it's women in tech, people in tech, women in basketball, who knows, who say, wow, Sylvia is somebody I want to be like or learn from or get in touch with or whatever it might be. Or I'm in IT and she sounds like she'd be a fantastic leader to learn from and work for and work with. Where does everyone best find you?
So I'm on LinkedIn. I don't know the URL, but I'm on LinkedIn. That's the best way. I watch my LinkedIn profile quite often, and I receive messages there. So LinkedIn is the best way to contact me.
And you never know when you'll see her out and about in the community, either watching some basketball with your granddaughter or telling your story and helping others.
Some other platform, I'll be talking about me and my life lessons and things I've done and where I'm going next. But yeah.
Thank you so much for today. Basketball saved your life, and thank you for sharing the inspiration, light, and love.
Thank you for having me.
This concludes another episode of the She Lift Project podcast. To hear more episodes of the show, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And to learn more about our mission of helping women reach higher levels of success, visit SheLiftProject.com and sign up to receive the latest news, ebooks, videos, and more.